Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today's guest is Kashyap Kompella, and he is the founder over at RPA2AI Research. Kashyap, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
All right, so Cash, this is part of our series that we've been doing on FII Institute Priority Summit coverage. And I was out in Miami, I'll tell you, Cash, for the first time heading to this event. And one of my buddies, he tells me, gotta come to this, gotta come to this. You're missing out, you're missing out. And I'm like, I already go to a lot of conferences, got a lot to do. But then I went and I'll tell you, I was like pleasantly surprised. It was something new, it was something different. I'm curious on your end, Cash, how did you get introduced to FI Institute and these conferences?
Perfect. Yeah, that's been my experience at FII Miami Priority as well. I got plugged into this network because I was going to Davos before COVID hit. And they've been inviting me for the FII and the main event that they do in Riyadh and the different summits across the world. But this is my first time I really had the opportunity to go and see in person all the good things that you hear about the events that FII puts out. As an industry analyst, I go to a lot of conferences, but this one stood out because it
Mm,
really wasn't about talk and trends, but it's really about action. And the FII Institute is really not a think tank, but I think of them as an action tank. So big ideas and a sharp focus on what's practical and bold action. So you,
mm,
you have sort of what's interesting is you have really like high level decision makers, obviously some heads of state, all the movers and shakers, a lot of the investment community, particularly because the theme of the Miami event was investments. So you had
mm,
sovereign funds to startup founders and AI leaders. It's rare to see that kind of a lineup in one place. And
mm,
clearly it points out to the emerging importance of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the global scene, not just as a
mm.
host of this conference, but also as like a serious player that's shaping not just the future of energy, but even tech and geopolitics.
Mm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And an interesting thing that you mentioned that I noticed was that just the level and the quantity of decision makers and the individuals that you meet, I was like, man, how did they get all these people to one place at one time, right? It
Absolutely.
was different. It was different, and it was great. And I don't know is this the first event you've been to, by the way, or have you been to some others?
I have attended some of their programming in Davos, but AI events itself, this is the first time.
Yeah.
But
I'm told the
what's
one in
interesting is
Riyadh
when
is, yeah, I'm told the one in Riyadh is like the one. Even like Miami was great, but I'm told the one in Riyadh is like the one to be at. I have not been yet.
absolutely, yeah. I'd been to Riyadh a couple of times for other events by this team.
Mm,
So the AI summit in Riyadh, and there is something called the future of science, culture, and philosophy, I think.
mm,
So what's interesting is not just the conferences, but the transformation. The people on the ground talk about the transformation that's happening in Saudi itself. So
yeah.
that's quite interesting. As an observer of trends, as an industry analyst, it's really quite fascinating, the amount of
Mm.
change that's happening on the ground.
Now, jumping around a little bit here, I understand that you are the author of a best-selling book, AI for Lawyers, and that was published by a leading publisher in the United States, West Academic. First off, congrats. How does it feel?
Absolutely. This is my second bestseller. The first one was called Practical Artificial Intelligence. That was about 5, 6 years ago. That focused on artificial intelligence.
Mm,
So this AI for Lawyers is co-authored with law professor James Cooper. So we really have been writing a few pieces on the geopolitics of AI, etc. But then through our teaching work, etc., we saw that there was a massive gap. So we've been teaching AI courses and master classes around the world for law students, for directors, and even some judges, etc. But in our work, it became very clear that the legal profession is hungry for this knowledge, but the resources just
mm,
weren't there. So think about it, right? There are thousands of books on AI for managers, AI for technologists, and some on AI governance, etc. But who actually has to implement those ethics and standards? Who has to
mm-hmm,
draft the policies? Who is responsible for enforcing and making sure that all those guidelines are followed? It's
mm,
lawyers.
mm-hmm.
But yet there was no real playbook for them. So that's what we wanted to change. So this book covers a lot of ground. It talks about how AI is showing up across the entire legal spectrum, be it criminal law, commercial law, employment, consumer law, you name it. So we even go
Mm.
into some fields, we explore some fields like banking, arbitration, insurance, corporate law, mergers, acquisitions. And of course, the biggest elephant in the room, which is intellectual property rights. It's
Yeah.
huge right now, especially for creators, artists, writers, podcast musicians, and anyone that's out putting great work into the world. So
Mm,
one big theme is we dig into how lawyers can be part of the loop. It's not like AI is going to replace lawyers or stuff like that, which you keep hearing, but how they can upgrade themselves. It's about lawyers helping create more responsible AI standards, thinking about smart regulation, and yes, I mean, making legal work more efficient too. But
mm,
there are some challenges when we talk about them as well. It's not all hunky dory. Particularly, the legal world is not exactly known for their fast adoption of new technologies. It's cautious and for a good reason. But when push comes to shove, as we saw in the pandemic, the legal profession can adopt quite quickly. And also for lawyers across industries, you see that they're already doing a lot of work. The clients of the lawyers are doing a lot of work in AI. So lawyers need to
mm,
catch up, not just to stay relevant, but also serve their clients well. So yeah, this book isn't just about legal tech, but it's a call to action for the lawyers that
hmm.
the AI movement for them has arrived.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your company? So RPA to AI research. So maybe tell me a little bit more about the company and what you do.
Sure. So I wear a few different hats. Like I'm an industry analyst, I'm an author, columnist, and advisor. So I help companies, governments, and investors make sense of emerging technologies, particularly artificial intelligence. So not just the cool applications, but the risks, regulations, and real world impact. So that's what I focus on through our firm, RPA to AI research. So we're an industry analyst firm with footprint across Asia, India, and the US. And our work spans across advisory, research, and education upskilling. We're known for our work in AI investments, governance, and upskilling.
Mm,
So personally, I'm passionate about teaching. So I teach AI for directors and across business schools and law schools. So we're known, like I said, for our work in AI risks and governance, things like that. So
mm,
when you look at the field of AI, there is a lot of talk about responsible AI, but there is a need to bridge that gap between theory and what actually works in practice. So that's where I think we're known. We come in for that.
hmm.
So yeah, that's so this technology is moving fast, and we help people, leaders, and companies lead through it and not just like struggle to stay afloat.
Mm. So from your vantage point, I mean, because you're living in this world, so meaning you're obviously teaching others, you're writing the books on it. I'm just curious, within AI, what kind of trends are you following? Like what excites you? What gets you interested and excited?
Absolutely. AI applications. So the amount of innovation that we're seeing in AI, I think we're not seeing in any other space at this point in time. So one of the things that I learned going back to the reason for this podcast, which is the FII event. So interestingly, AI and energy are now inseparable. So AI, like there is a wonderful applications that they talked about, but to realize that you need to have compute infrastructure and the energy. So that's something that I coined after this conference, which is that energy is a core element of the AI stack. And you see that reflected in the huge multi-$100 billion investments that are being announced in the US to create infrastructure, AI applications, Project Stargate, and
Hmm.
whatnot. So countries with strong energy positions, whether it's oil, solar, nuclear, they're going to play an important role in AI's future. So that's one key trend that stands out. And usually, if you look at how technologies get adopted, the technology is coming first, and a lot of buzz is created. But the actual adoption on the ground, it lags by about 3 to 5 years. That's been my experience as an industry analyst. So ChatGPT has been released roughly, let us say, 2.5 years or something. So in the next 3 years or so, you're going to see the applications of generative AI, etc., get adopted and accelerate. So we're in for some fun times.
Mm. What will be the impact of AI on professions, jobs, and careers? Like, what are you seeing?
Oh wow, that's a fascinating question. So we often hear that AI will take our jobs or steal our jobs, etc. But it's not that simple. So how I look at it is, yes, some jobs get eliminated, but some others get created. So this has been experienced through lots of, I mean, centuries of new technologies coming in and getting created, etc. But the real challenge, which I think we're not paying enough attention to, is in timing and transition. Like, do these new jobs do they show up right away? No, not always. Sometimes it takes years and even decades. And in the meantime, what happens is people are stuck in limbo. And there is also the question, which is increasingly important, of where do those new jobs get created?
Mm,
Do they pop up in an entirely different industry or in different cities and geographies? So even if there is new jobs created, it may not necessarily help the people who just got displaced. Plus other factors like what are these new jobs? They may demand totally different skills. So we're talking less routine work, more analytical or creative stuff. That means reskilling, which is great in theory, but As you would know, it's very harder in practice, especially for older workers and people who are in lower income roles.
Mm,
Then there is the issue of pay. Not all new jobs come with the same salary. Even if someone keeps their job, they might still feel that pressure, more work, fewer raises, hiring freezes. So there are a lot of soft shocks that are possible. So AI is probably fundamentally going to change the nature of work. And it also is going to expose some cracks in how we train people, support transitions, and thinking about careers spanning over a lifetime, etc. So that needs to change. So that's actually a fascinating area and our research focus at our PA2I research. What does it really take for people and companies to adapt and not just
mm,
react? So one another fascinating thing is something that we like to say, which is AI, particularly with generative AI, is colorblind. So the traditional knowledge or the traditional assumption was that AI is going to come after blue collar jobs, but high value add work, creative work, etc., is safe from automation. But no, whether it's blue collar, white collar, or some other color of work, all of that is now exposed to AI. So this is like a serious question that organizations, societies, and countries have to take very seriously.
mm-hmm, mm. Well, Kashyap, I have to say, this has been an enlightening conversation on AI. Maybe one day I will meet you in person at one of these FII events. I know I'm planning on going to some more. I really thoroughly enjoyed my time there, and all the people in this entire series that I've talked to have been outstanding, and they've also enjoyed it as well. So I think that that whole franchise, that whole summit, that whole, it's just going to keep, it's going to keep growing. We're going to hear more and more about it, and I'm happy to bring that to my audience. That being said, Cash, if somebody's listening or watching this and they want to follow up and learn more about your work or connect, how do they do that?
Just follow me on LinkedIn, connect on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to share any other information or resources that you may need. So, Kashyap Kompella on LinkedIn.
Amazing. And for everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put the links in the show notes so you can just click on them and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day, we bring you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way in your journey as well. So, again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And Cash, thanks again for coming on the show.
Salem, it's been a pleasure.